Okay, overall, I just want to point out that this write-up is really, I would give it a merit straight away, but I'm just pointing out some structural things and possibly some misconceptions that could improve it. I mentioned this already. The first sentence under the long-term trend needs to be overall the long-term trend is, and you've got three options: increasing, decreasing, or staying the same. So that's always your first sentence for long-term trend. Then the next paragraph, you can break that down and look at some, say, blocks of 3 to 4 years of what's going on by zooming in a little bit. You have to read this to pick this up, but this first paragraph really deals with the long-term trend, because the person has talked about that graph that I showed you that's on the left with all the graphs on top of each other. That's not wrong, only if you've made a title seasonal effects, it would make more sense to start with. We see that the peaks usually occur in February and March. So you're going right into talking about the different seasons and where the peaks occur and where the troughs occur. So that would be the first paragraph under seasonal effects, literally talking about the seasons. Again, this word that's in here, and I'll just put it in context for you. I'm talking about the word average. The main troughs occur from April to June and reaches minus 2,000 arrivals on average. I wanted to change that word to trend and maybe rewrite it. The main troughs occur from April to June and reach minus 2,000 people below the trend. Again, average is not wrong, but I suppose it's a preference. So that when I mean by that word trend, I suppose I'm meaning that long-term, either decreasing line or increasing line, or line staying the same. And you can say above or below the trend. And I've just put a note on the right hand side. You can still talk about the seasonal effects. It adds to your understanding. Like I can see that you've understood the long-term trend better by putting that paragraph in there, only it would probably come at the bottom here as the main topic here is the seasonal effect. And I've just put a suggestion there, like this person's got into detail about why the dips and why the increases. You need to do that for excellence. Come up with some suggestions. And the main suggestion is to do with the holidays in Japan. But the other reason that people come to Japan in summer is because there's good weather in New Zealand. Okay, if you compare this comment compared to yesterday's comment, it's much improved. Again, I've added that same sentences that I talked about yesterday, and it's one that you can learn and put into pretty much all comments on residuals. The residuals are not very large compared to the raw data range of around 8,000 arrivals. Great. The majority of residuals fall in the range of plus or minus 1,000 people. Brilliant. Then the next sentence should be, which is, usually you'd say, which is less than 10% of the raw data and considered to be a low residual. Less than 10% is considered to be a low residual when you ignore it as a residual. However, this one is actually, if you take 1,000 and compare that with 8,000, that actually works out to 12.5%. So you could even ignore the 12%, it's a low residual. And then they go on and they explain the 2 or 3 dates where there are discrepancies between the model and the raw data, and that's a well-structured residual comment. This table I'm beginning to dislike more and more. And particularly I don't want to see any decimal places, because it shows very little understanding when you show me decimal places, because you haven't understood that. Remember, the raw data is the trend plus the seasonal component plus the residual component, and it's very difficult to assign percentages as to what percent each one makes up, particularly with the case of Japan. Notice, we'll just go and look at one data value and hopefully it doesn't stall on me. I've changed that to 4,000, from 3,000 to 4,000, and it looks like I've changed that. Oh yeah, that would mean the range would change to 3.5. Watching? Should we do it like this? So remember, you're looking at this graph and you're trying to work out the percent that the trend component takes up of the range that the raw data goes through. So really, I probably should look at my, and this is why it's hard for Japan, because it has sort of 2 trends. It's got the average one, but then it's got the steep one and an increased one. And so if you just look at, whatever you do, don't look at that peak to that peak for trend. The trend has to be an average, right? So let's take it, say, between 5,000 and 4,000. So that's the range. Sorry, I said 5, I meant 7. 4,000 to 7,000 is the range of the trend. With me? So that's the range of the trend line. But you can see how inaccurate this is, because what if I looked at this trend? The range there is different. Okay.
So why isn't it 8? No, isn't it the maximum?
The maximum value?
Like the maximum of the trend.
Okay. Okay, again, it's arguable. You could say the maximum value of the trend is 8,000 and the lower bottom end of the trend is 4,000. So
would it be okay to...
look, if you miss this table out completely, it's probably not going to affect your marks too much. But I think the overall conclusion with this particular one is that the 3 components are sort of a third. So 7.5 or 8, as you said, to 4. That is a range of 3,500, right? 3.5 compared to 8 is just below 50%. And I've written it, if you actually work it out on the calculator, it comes to 43.5. And again, use whole numbers. So the number should either end up in a 0 or a 5. And I've used 45%. Here, I've gone and checked that. Minus 2,000 to 2,000, fine. That actually is what the range of the seasonal effect was. And you can see 4,000 over 8,000 is 50%. No problems there. However, if you go look at the residuals, that is correct. That is correct. And 2.5 or 2,700 over 8,000 comes to 33%. We've got a problem. 33%, 45%, and 50% is well over 100%. So if you actually look at it, the components are roughly a third. I mean, I'm talking round numbers. It's difficult to do. So that's my overall conclusion to that table. The components are shared relatively evenly, and I've said relatively compared to other models that we've seen. Sometimes the seasonal effect is the major component of the three components that make up the raw data, and sometimes it's but don't get too bothered about this table. If you missed it out completely, it's not going to be, I don't want to say definitely it's not going to cost you the excellence, but it's a component for me to understand. It's all about you putting down what you're thinking and your understanding, so I can read your work and hopefully understand that you've got a good understanding of time series, or a moderate understanding, or a weak understanding, and that's how how it's going to get marked. Let's stop that.